GM, everyone. Hello and welcome to another Developers Guild. My name is Mike Pawel. I am the DevRel at Superteam Germany. And today we have another super exciting Dev Guild. Namely, the topic is building for success. Now, I know it's a very wide topic to cover, but I feel like you will get like the essentials of what it means, and we will cover basically how to build fast, how to go to production, and how to grow, which are very, very important aspects regarding not only building your projects for the hackathon, but having a vision how your product will look like in the future. Like scaling and growing is super important. Maybe not to all products at the beginning because you might change them, but in the global spectrum, it's the more important the earlier you start, because then it will get easier for you. And for today's Dev Guild, we have one of Germany's top Solana devs I know, namely Carlos from Squads. He is currently the grid lead. And without further ado, let's welcome Carlos to the stage. GM, how's it going?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. Really good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So before we start, I think some people from the audience know what Squads is, but could you just shortly introduce what grid means in relation to Squads?
Yeah, definitely. So Squad started about 4 years ago, and funnily enough, like Squad started out of one of the Solana hackathons, and they didn't win anything. I think it wasn't even like an honorable mention. And But it started out kind of as a treasury management product. Eventually, we built out the leading smart account standard on Solana. That's kind of at the protocol layer. On top of that, we've kind of spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to build really great products that people love, namely Squad's multisig, which is a product that every major team in the ecosystem uses in order to either control their treasury, take revenue from the protocols, or manage the upgradability or configuration of the programs. And then once, Squad's multisig went through various iterations, eventually we kind of branched out into multiple products. We have Fuse, which is personal banking, kind of reimagined. It's bringing the security of a multisig and the convenience of a smart account into the mobile form factor, and it's our very opinionated take on what sort of custody should be over sort of like your bags, really, on the mobile form factor. With Fuse, earlier this year, we launched a self-custodial stablecoin card with Stripe and Visa and Bridge, and all of that is run on top of our smart account infrastructure. Then we have Altitude, which is more recent, which is a business banking product. And when I say banking here, it's like it means like storing and moving money around in a very convenient way. But we're talking about on-chain finance, right? So it's all controlled by this by the protocol, the smart contract, in a self-custodial way, with different access controls for teams that are being managed, or the finances of a team that are being managed by multiple people, right? So we've kind of taken all the lessons that we've had with Fuse and with Squad's multisig and brought them into the business finance realm. And so over the last few years, kind of building these products, we've realized that for as much as the idea was that all it took was a protocol and a UI, and you had like this what was the word that everybody would use? This censorship resistant, completely autonomous kind of applications. This is, yes, it might be true, but at the same time, these are applications that nobody wanted to use because the UX demand or the expectations of users are here, and just the UI on top of a protocol is far from that. Even on a chain like Solana, where we're processing tens of thousands of transactions per minute, there's still like too much gap between Web2 systems and just the front end, like a very simple front end on top of a protocol. And the gap that exists in between is a lot of optimizations on the read layer. For example, anytime you talk to an RPC, it costs you 600 milliseconds, right? 600 milliseconds for a Web2 app is an eternity. And so if you're querying balance, if you're querying then the transaction history, if you're querying token addresses, token logos, different information for prices, all of these queries are costing you time that in the Web2 realm are solved problems. But in the Web3 realm, it's stuff that we had to collect over the years. And transaction landing optimizations, optimizations to keep the custody over or keep the covenant of self-custody intact, and all these different things, and also the internal utilities for us to be able to build on top of these primitives fast is ultimately what we built into Grid. So it's a productized version of years of experience of what it takes to build apps at scale that people love on top of this infrastructure. And so over the years, there's been a lot of kind of chatter of like, the L1 doesn't scale, or we need to build a different type of L1 that has a lot of these things built in. And we took a different approach. We kind of saw that Solana had the really interesting properties that achieved a certain level of decentralization that we considered had the right trend for us to want to double down on it as a network. And we realized over time, through kind of a lot of kind of very clever solutions, that it was possible to implement payment systems at scale, treasury management systems at scale, neobanks at scale on top of this. And so Grid is our proof of that, or actually all of our products are a proof of that. But Grid is now what we enable other developers to ultimately inherit by building on top of it.
And will you go into the technical aspects of Grid today?
We can talk a little bit about it if you want. We can, if we jump into the first slide here. There we go.
There we go.
Handle millions in users' deposits from day one. This kind of really comes down to the ethos with which we're building Grid, which is we're building Grid to be account infrastructure that people want to trust with their life savings. Because when you're building a protocol, or when you're building any type of product in Web3, your users' accounts is this very, very important thing. And I guess traditionally with like the Phantoms and MetaMasks and the extension wallets of the world, you didn't have a lot of control over the user experience. But at the very least, you were essentially throwing to the user the responsibility of security, right? Now, when developers embed accounts into their apps, they have the benefit of controlling the user experience, but now they have the responsibility of doing it in a very safe and scalable way. And that's ultimately the problem that we've kind of tackled head on with Grid, so that developers can have a really good DevX with really, really good security out of the box. And so the way we do this is by combining multiple concepts. Kind of like going at them in order here. It's a lot of things that we do in the smart account world, or the benefits that smart account enable us, is that smart accounts are ultimately smart contracts, right? They're programs, they're fully on chain. That means that they are programmable, right? And so a lot of the work that we've done over the last few months has been to extend the programmability of smart accounts to a bunch of different types of policies. And I'll talk about them kind of specifically in the future. But this kind of like policy-enabled programmability of the smart accounts allows developers to achieve similar levels of control as if they were building with custodial accounts, but without breaking this covenant of self-custody. And what this means is that developers, depending on the situation, I don't want to give financial advice, but in many cases, they don't need to get licensed in order to handle users' funds, because ultimately users are not giving the funds away to the developer, but rather they're giving permissions to the developer to do things on their behalf in various different cases. So that's policies. Data reconciliation speaks to the fact that the read layer on Solana is kind of clunky, like interacting with RPCs. Token accounts don't actually. So each asset inside of your wallet has its own individual token account. Token accounts, when you query them, have no information as to like what token it is other than the address. So then you have to then call the mint to get the information of what token is this, what's the symbol, how many decimals it has. So all these types of things kind of create a lot of problems in the read layer, including when you make payments. If you kind of make payments that go into traditional banking rails, reconciling data between on and off chain, it starts being a query problem that we've kind of integrated into the API. And then redundancy, because so the developer experience right now of key management services like Privy, Turnkey, Dynamic, the developer experience is amazing. They offer really great products, but over the years we've learned that redundancy is extremely important, because if your users don't have access to their funds, they're going to blame you, right? Even if it's just some downtime or something like that. And so instead of having full dependency on top of a single provider for key management, a lot of our customers wanted to deploy keys with email-based keys. And so we've integrated multiple key management services in a 1 out of 2 setup with a kind of multisig setup, so that developers can provide email-based keys, but also redundancy, so that if one provider is down, they have a second provider to provide access to the account. And then they have also fully on-chain passkeys if they want to add extra security, or they want to add a third key with a ledger or something on device. So these are kind of like some of the main components of the API. The idea is that you should be able to get started extremely fast. We have a really simple SDK. You can declare the client, create an email-based key, and then immediately you can start sending and receiving payments. Payments ultimately refer to the moving of money from point A to point B in traditional finance. And so we also worked with our friends at Bridge to bring connectivity to the traditional financial system, so you can make payments from crypto to ACH, wire, SEPA, and Swift is coming soon as well. And then through the programmability of smart accounts, you can also have recurring payments. So if you wanted to pay your rent every month with an automation in USDC, you can do it, or build that sort of thing on top of Grid. And then we're building in more and more connectivity to traditional DeFi, although, in the context of kind of Solana developers that are used to handling Solana transactions, our smart accounts are compatible with any type of Solana transaction. And so in this example, there's a Jupiter transaction that can execute a swap, but we're bringing more of those integrations in-house. And then, of course, the protocol itself is fully open source. So this is part of kind of like our ethos, right? Everything we do at the smart contract level never goes to production, never goes to mainnet without at least 2 audits and 1 formal verification. Squads v4, which secures the greater bulk of what developers trust our protocol with right now, has like over 10 audits, 2 formal verifications, something like that. The program is immutable, which is something we always strive for. Program itself is open source. And so these are the kind of like the values that we've extended to the infrastructure that we're building as well. And then it's about kind of like bringing into one place all of these things that as I mentioned, other people will tell you, you need a second layer, you need another chain. And it's like, no, actually a lot of these things are already live right now in Solana. You can make payments at less than a penny per transaction. Solana has really good stablecoin liquidity these days. You have access controls for sort of like treasury management if you need a high throughput. Of course, Solana has settlement time of, right now you get confirmed transactions down to around 1 second. Usually less than that, like 800 milliseconds. But of course, Alpenglow is bringing this down to like actual finality to like under 150 milliseconds, which is insane. And then you have fee flexibility because we have gas abstraction built in. So any transaction built on top of Grid is you can pay for fees in USDC or on any other token. Really, right now we have a handful of stablecoins enabled, but if you need support for any other token, just let us know and we can enable it. And then also you can sponsor fees for all of your users' transactions if you don't want to actually have them bother with paying fees. Yeah, so that's basically it. Build with any stablecoin. The integrations that we have right now are Bridge, Turnkey, Privy, Helios, Triton. Once again, we use multiple providers because we really believe in redundancy. Because just like Solana has 1,000 nodes, we believe in having redundancy to make sure that our users have the very best experience possible. And when I say our users, is because our users are developers who are building for users, right? And so developers building on Grid need a lot of sort of assurances, and so that's ultimately kind of what Grid is. It's a developer infrastructure for developers who want to build for scale.
And just a question here, because you mentioned that like there's the UX trade-off here, like with Privy that you have, that people will have to manage the wallets or like other providers. Am I getting it right that Grid is doing similar stuff? So would you have also like a client where people log in and then you manage their funds, or how can I understand this?
Yeah, I can explain. You can just go to the docs and I'll just show you. And I always prefer just showing the docs because that's exactly where people are going to see these things as well. So they'll be able to navigate through them. Can you see my?
Yes.
There we go. So these are our docs. I'll share the link here on the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. So I have the main link, which is squad.xyz/grid.
So this is grid.squads.xyz.
I see. Okay.
And so so this is a little diagram as to what Grid is. Everything that you see here in this diagram pretty much encompasses what Grid is. We have integrated Privy and Turnkey. So what happens is that when you create an account, if we go to the quick start, you can see kind of how simple it is to create an account. You generate some session keys in your client, and then you kind of pass those in afterwards. But you can create an account here with an email. So what happens is that we create keys for you with this email as sort of the authentication address with both Privy and Turnkey at the same time under the hood. Then you pass in your session keys, which will allow you to not have to do a OTP validation on every transaction. And so once you complete this off, we will always route your transaction. Oh, and I mean, you can add more keys. This is just the email-based flow. The thing is that we also have a kind of a sort of like simpler flow, which is signer-based accounts. And signer-based accounts are just regular Solana key pairs, right? And you just pass them through the create account endpoint. But with the email-based accounts, what happens is that we're creating those keys in the background with turnkey and privy. You're authenticating with that OTP code, and then that session key has is valid for about an hour, on which you don't have to revalidate that OTP code. So it means that if privy ever has any kind of problems logging you in, then we can fall back to your turnkey key, so that you always have access to your account, regardless of whether of privy's uptime, right? And then of course we also have passkeys, which are kind of like can act as a 2FA to increase your security from a 1 out of 2 to a 2 out of 3 keys. And with passkeys, once again, what happens is that you create a passkey on your device. Usually it's like mobile devices and stuff like that. And a session key is created that is valid for an hour. So you don't have to re-authenticate on each transaction. But effectively, we're using multiple providers to give you fault tolerance, and so that you never lose access to your account. Fault tolerance is important because, like, imagine if you have a borrow lend position and your key management service is down, then you won't be able to log back in fast enough to pay back the collateral and not get liquidated, right? Or to close a position on a per platform. And so this is why fault tolerance is so important, and why we've kind of built it into our system. Then, we're fully compatible with any other form of keys. So bring them in if you need them. Everything kind of like gets put into a smart account, that configuration, and then that gives you, of course, access to greater DeFi and crypto in general, and then to traditional finance through our bridge integration.
All right. So just to be clear, so at first when I was hearing you explain how Grid works, I was thinking about that you use like Privy as the authentication layer or the authentication party, but you seem like Grid seems to be a connective party, right? So you integrate different protocols, as you mentioned, in order if there is some fault happening or like downside with Privy, you can still be able to integrate it. So should I think about you just being like the false safe or force safe mechanism, or like a sort of copy as well on top of Privy?
So what I would say is that it's in addition to, but through sort of creating accounts with Grid, you don't have to create accounts with Privy or Turnkey or anything like that, right? We do it for you in a self-custodial way, right? We're not taking custody over your users' wallets or signers. It's just that we're trying to be extremely opinionated as to how this happens, because we have a lot of experience kind of like optimizing for ultimately the different things that we consider are important, that kind of led us to sort of where we are as a company. And we're trying to extend that opinionatedness to developers so that they don't have to worry about what is the best setup for my users' funds, right? It's about confidence, right? And so, when you use us, you don't have to have an account with Privy. You don't have to have an account with Turnkey. The reason why there's other key management services here listed and other options is because at the enterprise level, this becomes a lot more relevant, right? An enterprise might want to have their users' keys custodied with Fireblocks, and Grid is actually fully compatible with any other key management solution. It's just that we've built in what we think is a great starting point for most apps.
I see. Okay. And would you have like some example where it's already integrated? Like I
Yes.
don't know, some
Yeah,
company.
we can come here. We actually have a reference implementation of a neobank, where there's about 12 API endpoints, which are now actually abstracted into an SDK. And so you can actually, in our docs, there's a page and you can fork it. Wait, are we seeing the right tab? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, exactly. So there's this repo called Neobank Example App, where you can fork it and
It just got deleted.
Here we go. Yeah, exactly. And this is fully open source. You can fork it. We update it every time we update the SDK. Right now it's iOS only, but I mean, it's built on Expo, so you shouldn't have any problem porting it over to Android. But so effectively, it includes querying transaction history, sending and receiving money, both from wallets or from traditional banking. And the traditional banking kind of connectivity we have through Bridge, which you can, in this app, launch virtual accounts with Euro or US dollar, so ACH and SEPA. So you can get your own bank address, and then when you send money to that, it lands in your account as stablecoins, as USDC, and it's email login, everything. So this is a great starting point for most teams to be able to understand kind of like what an implementation, like a real world implementation, would look like for Grid inside of their applications. I really, really recommend people come and fork this. But also, so people can go and try it themselves, we have in our quick start LLM integration prompts. And this will vary depending on which LLM you're using. But this includes kind of all the types of instructions that you need in order to have an LLM go and propose an implementation for you based on our documentation. So it'll be a little bit faster for you to get started by building a UI and then coming here and then asking an LLM to go ahead and build an MVP.
Sounds great. So the neobank, is it like fully built on grids, saying that there's like
100%.
only
Correct.
simple integrations, or is it like lots of coding that had to be done on top of what's been done there? Like I'm imagining.
No, it's 100% integrated with grid integration. So if you go to not the components, because everything's kind of server side. Where would this be? App API. So as you can see, for example, how we get, so there's a singleton implementation. So you declare one Grid SDK client, and you get the instance, and then with the Grid client, you just do get account balances, and then boom, you have your account balance. Or getting a virtual account. So once again, you get the instance and you get the virtual account from the SDK. So it's extremely trivial. Like this is a neobank in a box, right? Like in Germany, N26 is very popular. So what does N26 have? N26 has a way to log in. So here's how you log in. It has a way to see your balance. So here's how you get your balance. It has a way to create an account. So here's how you create an account. This body, of course, is coming from the client side, which is going to give you the email address of the user. The reason why we're proxying everything through the server is so that we don't leak the grid API keys, right? You can get your transfers, so your transaction history, KYC, which is important when you connect the traditional banking system. So you can request the KYC link. Immediately, we give you a URL that you can display in an iframe, and that'll take your user to complete the entirety of the KYC process. You can the verification of the OTP codes is about verifying the user's email address. Opening virtual account once your user is KYC'd is as simple as requesting a virtual account. Inside of the body, you're just requesting something with a specific currency. Currency refers to, whether it's a SEPA or a ACH virtual account. So it's extremely simple. And this is the thing, like when you think about it, like before, the reason why building a neobank like N26 or Revolut or something like that would take millions of dollars, big team, etc., is not necessarily because the code is hard. And yet the code, yes, it has to be extremely secure. It has to be extremely scalable. But the chain already takes care of the most important things, like the smart contract takes care of the fact that it protects from double spend. It has very easy sort of transaction histories because you can query things via the signatures because every user has their own key. You don't need a compliance department because everything is self-custodial. And now you don't even have to get an RPC or anything like that because we take care of all the RPC stuff, like getting the balance, confirming a transaction. Everything gets done here in the SDK. Now, you see, sending a transaction is as simple as calling send. So you go to our docs, you grab a API key. So we can see here, I'm going to sign in with my Google account. Boom. So these are all my API keys in the dashboard. We have a very, very good free plan. So right now you have up to 5,000 free accounts. Here you can see the pricing. Actually, you get up to 5,000 free accounts right now if you're in the Coliseum Hackathon. And after that, it's extremely affordable. And so you get your API key here, and then you follow the instructions, or you literally just fork the repo, and then you have a neobank. And neobanks are really kind of the beginning of any financial application, because even if you're building an app that is in Deepin, for example, and you're paying users to upload videos, and then you're licensing those videos to to AI labs who are using it as training data, and then you pay your users in your own token, and you have this kind of virtual cycle of a Deepin. Well, your users need an account to receive those funds, right? And so you need a secure way to pay your users. And this is a very, very easy way for them to on-ramp funds or off-ramp funds, to swap, to store their accounts. They don't have to download an extension, just build it all into the app.
Yeah, this would be like one question I wanted to raise, because we see the neobank aspect or the application field there. But what would you see, or have you seen other examples that can be built, like specifically for this hackathon? What do you think you would want to see, or what do you think is could be greatly improved by using grids instead of other business software?
So maybe I'll share some other slides that I have here, which kind of go into this, where it's like it's about creating differentiation. And the reason why I kind of, maybe we can, okay, there we go. The reason why this is kind of like relevant is because just like every app in Web 2 is some business logic hidden behind authentication. Or actually, no, a good way to put it is every app in Web 2 is a CRUD app: create, read, update, delete. Right? It's kind of that simple. When it comes to crypto, every app needs a way to receive assets, to read from the chain, to then submit transactions to the chain, and to well, not delete actions. The chain doesn't really allow for deletions, but you get the analogy. And so what it means is that every app is essentially a financial app, and so differentiation of what you do can be very nuanced. And the way that I like to talk about it is in going from CRUD to a successful application. What does that take? So if we look at a very, very highly contested category like neobanks, actually you can see my notes here, but you don't really need them. A really contested category like neobanks, the way that Chime, for example, which just went public a few months ago, did it is that they built a card that was built around, in the States, getting your credit score higher is extremely important. But banks don't give low-income people credit cards or they don't give them higher credit scores or a lot of credit because they don't have a lot of income or recurring income and stuff like that. So what Chime did was they built a credit card that acts like a debit card. So every time you tap it, it actually takes funds and essentially puts them in escrow and stores them. And then at the end of the month, it pays the fees of the credit card. So it ends up having zero interest and pretty much acting like a debit card. But through this really clever system, it acts as if the user actually was using credit and therefore improves their credit score over time. And so it used the same rules that everybody had in front of them to implement a very, very particular feature that was very, very important for a very specific set of users. And all of a sudden, they built a beautiful business that went public and is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You take the same concept of a card and then you apply it to a different geography. In this case, Monzo. Monzo was one of the first neobanks out of the UK. At the time, consumers were really distrustful of using card payments out in the street, out and about, because their cards would get swiped all the time. So the credentials of the card would get duplicated, and then there would be all these fraud claims and stuff that they had to go through. And so what that meant was that consumers were preferring cash. And when consumers prefer cash, it means they don't store the money in the banks, which then in turn means that the banks have less money to then lend out. So that creates a virtual cycle, or the opposite of virtual cycle, creating kind of like a bad economy. And so they realized that all that people ultimately wanted was feel like they were in control of their card. So they built a very simple app, which allowed customers to freeze the card and to have real-time notifications every time they spent with the card. And that very, very simple thing all of a sudden made consumers trust cards again because they felt like they were in control. So you take the exact same thing that somebody built in a totally different geography, like we just saw before, but you package it in a different way, and then all of a sudden you have a beautiful business that, Monzo is one of the leaders in kind of financial innovation in the UK. And then if we look at Nubank is a totally different story. Like a ginormous Nubank in Brazil. New as in the word new, not new as in the name. But they were like, we see that in Brazil, every time you have to go to the bank, it takes a ton of time. It's super inefficient. People really hate their banks. And so they were like, let's just build a 100% digital bank that doesn't have a single physical interaction. And people were like, yeah, that's not going to work. It's worked in other places in the world, but it's not going to work in emerging markets, et cetera, et cetera. Turns out people really needed that and they really wanted that. And through not having physical locations, Nubank could cut their costs down so that they could pass in the savings to the user and offer pretty much free banking, and then add new features that allowed them to build other types of revenue models. And they built a beautiful business out of it. I think it was like the fastest growing fintech startup in the world for a few years. Now they're ginormous. They have like 300 million customers or something crazy like that. And they're expanding all over the world now, right? So you take a very, very, what might seem like a crowded category, right? And it's very, very easy once you look, like you have to look out into the world and ask yourself, what do people actually need in specific environments? And you can still build a very successful business. So it's not about like, hey, how do we build things that maybe people are not expecting? Actually, or products in different categories. Actually, I would say that there's still a ton to be done of very, very successful businesses in the categories that people are already working on, in DeFi, in payments, in gaming. I don't know TBD as a category, but in deepen, in all these different categories that are still very, very beautiful businesses to be made. It's just that you just need to approach them a little bit different. And so, because now as an industry, we have cheap global account at scale. You have money that you can program without taking custody. You have 24/7 access. You have access to global financial services. And so now it just comes down to putting it all together and just identifying actual problems that people are having in the real world and going and building to them, because now you don't even need the infrastructure. We already take care of a lot of the infrastructure. We're adding yield to our APIs. We're adding cards to our APIs. We're adding trading to our APIs. So you don't even need to know how to build on chain. All you need to know is to identify an actual problem.
Great. I think it was very inspiring. Specifically, what I think, because we are building here in Superteam Germany mostly up to the hackathon phase. Now, you've mentioned several aspects or products that people might want to tap into. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the best aspects where to build on with grids would be DeFi and stablecoins. We have also other aspects like RWAs, consumer apps, and infrastructure. But would you see that grids is mostly specified for DeFi and stablecoins, or would you see RWAs aspect as well there?
Yeah, let's talk RWAs, right? So it's like, if you think about them, stablecoins are almost like an RWA in the sense of like a stablecoin is a tokenized treasury, like a T-bill, right? I guess we can stop sharing the screen here for now. And so, tokenize anything, right? You can tokenize a building. You can tokenize other types of investment assets. Once you tokenize it, all of a sudden you need to distribute it, right? And you need to basically, you can get integrated into DEXs, or you can get integrated into other financial services applications, or you could build your own application or your own website with a way for people to buy into this RWA, right? And so if people are going to have an account, they're going to have to be able to exchange in Europe euros for your RWA, then all of a sudden you need account infrastructure, right? And so I would say, like, there is no, as I said, every app is a stablecoin app. Every app is a neobank, for as much as we like it or not. What was the other category that you were asking? Infrastructure. Infrastructure, for example, validators. If you have an LSD and you want to get more people using your LSD, maybe you build a mobile app in order for people to have a really easy way to store their funds in your LSD and to have other perks, other types of experiences. And at that point, you need account infrastructure. And it's not about really just account infrastructure, it's about programmable account infrastructure. The next step of Grid, which we're very excited about launching in about towards the end of the month, is extending the idea of policies, where right now it's kind of limited to spending limits, so recurring transfers. We're extending that to any type of interaction, protocol interaction on Solana, with a fully on-chain policy engine, which will enable automated trading strategies, automated LP management, automated portfolio rebalancing, limit orders, DCAs, in any per platform, any DEX, etc., by just programming a specific policy on chain. Which, for example, let's look at a yield optimizing strategy. You'll be able to set a policy where you say only allow depositing and withdrawing from Camino and Drift. And so the program will enforce that only the deposit and withdraw instructions are able to be called by a specific key pair that the developer controls. So that enables developers to intelligently move money in and out of DeFi on behalf of their users without ever taking custody over the user's funds, and most importantly, without ever putting your users' funds at risk. Of course, it depends on how the policy is set up, but it's an extremely powerful primitive on which developers will be able to build any type of automation into their applications. And so I think it's applicable to any sort of infrastructure.
I see. Well, as I see, there's like always, when you're managing funds in any kind of aspects, you need you probably want some kind of infrastructure that is out there and done as you presented. But just for the new people that joined, because I see we have lots of newcomers, if you have any questions, write them down now and so we can discuss it. And on the side, I wanted to ask you if you have like any tips for developers who are currently building for the Colosseum hackathon. Like, what should they focus on? Should they think about scaling right now, or is it something where you say focus first on the basics, how your project works, and then after the hackathon focus on scaling?
So, I mean, the interesting part is that like scalability and security doesn't have to come at the cost of speed with Grid. Like, as I showed you, you can literally vibe code an app in 20 minutes, right? The other interesting aspect about like Solana hackathons is that they're not coding competitions. They've never been. They're like they're more like startup pitches. And then the other interesting quality of that is that AI brings the sort of cost of software pretty much down to almost zero, right? If you have to build your own smart contract, different story. But a lot of different APIs and tools like Grid allow you to get moving a lot faster. And so I would say don't spend a lot of time coding. Don't spend a lot of time like looking for the perfect infrastructure or anything like that. What you need to spend the time on is finding an actual problem that needs to be solved. And most importantly, also, because I've made this mistake myself, like I started out in Solana hackathons about 3 years ago. I was very fortunate to win some prizes and went on to get into the Solana incubator and to get some investment to build my startup and stuff like that. And what I realized was that like product founder fit is a lot more important than I thought it was. And it's that you need to have an extremely strong reason of why you are building this thing. And especially in crypto, where regardless of what category you're building in, there's a bunch of products that you can see that traction goes way up. Even if it's not like NFTs, for example, traction was insanely high. Even if it wasn't speculation on a protocol token or anything like that. And then traction went straight to zero. So you had something that was working for a long time and then zero. And so if you're the founder of that product, sure, it's easy to keep on going when it's going up, but when it's going down, that's when that conviction of you're doing the right thing because of your innate interests really comes into play. And especially if you want to raise money and stuff like that, I think it's super important for you to be really in tune with who you are and what you actually are interested in the world. And in order for you to push through all those hard times and to actually grow as an individual, which is super important when building anything, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, definitely just building for the sake of building won't get you far. It's
At the
always
same time, like I started there and like I was very thankful for like a lot of feedback that I got over the years by just putting yourself out there, right? But that's like approaching it for different reasons, right? You can approach a hackathon like as a learning experience, right? As a stepping stone, or you can approach it as a launchpad for your startup. But if you confuse the two and you just so happen to get success or recognition over something you really don't care about, and then you go and try to build a startup from that, that's a recipe for disaster usually.
Yeah, for sure. You have to root for what you're doing. I totally agree with that. And yeah, but of course, like you have people who really want to build for this hackathon and then move on to a working product and startup out of it. But some people just want to gain knowledge. I've seen it in the past hackathons that people join to learn, but this is also an important step of getting to where you want to go. Like maybe you want to build a startup at some point, but maybe now is not the right time. But you start by doing something and then you learn along the way. And how was it actually with you, if I can ask? Like, have you worked on different products before Squads?
Yeah. I launched 2 different products. Interestingly enough, Juicer, so it was a pivot of a automation protocol that I was building about 3 years ago. That product, for the hackathon, we built a variation of the product that was entirely front-end based. So we didn't have a protocol of our own, and we weren't custodying users' funds. We were actually building transactions that interacted with MarginFi and Camino in a way that their UIs didn't. We launched it with zero kind of marketing or anything like that, and we did like $4 million in volume in the first few months. In the first month, in the first 4 weeks. And so like people think that the bar is super high to do something that is valuable, that is useful for users, but it's not. It's really, especially with AI, it's like the barrier is actually super low. So it's just that you need to be in tune with your customer, right? You need to understand what do they care about, how do they care about it, and then you need to figure out how to give them what they need in a way that sort of like speaks to them. And so I built a lot of different stuff and ended up kind of burnt out from doing my own thing. And that was about a year ago. And yeah, ended up joining Squads and had the kind of opportunity to build great within.
Sounds great. Just because I see we are slowly running out of time, is this the most important link that you would say if people are seeing right now, they should look.
Yeah, exactly. Like you'll find everything there. The link to the docs is going to be there as well. Feel free to DM me. We also have an intercom on the dashboard or on the docs as well. So feel free to send questions and suggestions. We're always looking to improve our docs. The LLM prompts that we have, we're always looking to improve those. If you have any problems integrating, yeah, I mean, the only thing that I'm trying to do with Grid on a day-to-day basis, and the whole team is kind of fully invested in as well, is making a tool set that for developers to be able to build extremely fast and launch extremely fast, and so that they don't have to sacrifice security for the sake of developer experience. And as you know, I spoke for an hour about, I think every app is a financial application, and when it comes to managing users' money, it's really important that you do so in a very responsible way. Also, because it can have legal implications if you don't. And so, if there's something that you're trying to do on Solana that we don't support, that comes down to a critical infrastructure like this, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm always kind of keen on jumping on a call and brainstorming how we can bring that reality to life.
Amazing. And just one thing, if you would differentiate, people most likely know Privy, but they might not know Grids yet. If you would compare those two products or tell people who want to build on Privy why they should use you.
Well, it's Grid includes Privy within the tools, right? So it's like Privy is an amazing product, and they're extremely customer oriented and stuff, and we're very lucky to work with them very closely. But from our experience, what we understood is that having single points of failure are something that always need to be taken care of, and something that you have to be very careful about. And so that's why our protocol is open source. Like if we ever go down, you can go straight to the protocol. So we have two different key management services integrated. That's why we use both Helios and Triton. It's not that any of these are bad products. They're great products. But when it comes to financial infrastructure, you have to be extremely careful and extremely thoughtful as to how you provide access to your users' funds, because it has real world implications, right? And so it's not about one or the other. It's together, they are a better framework. They're a better primitive for you to build on top of.
So one analogy that pops in my mind, do you know Lulo? Because they're also managing different great products, and then they're leveraging all of them to get some added security to it. So would you say you are sort of Lulo for wallet managing platforms, sort of like the security layer of those?
I would say look, RPCs, connectivity to traditional finance, key management, programmable on-chain logic, all of these things into a single API. So it's an aggregator, right? It's the Jupyter of infrastructure for developers.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I see just in the comments we don't have any questions. Do you have anything else you want to spread in the Solana Germany community? And also, will you be a mentor during the hackathon at the build station?
Yeah, I'll be there. My calendar is always open for Superteam Germany folks. They know that. Yeah, I mean, everybody probably already knows me in the community, but yeah, Carlos_0x on Twitter. If you want to chat, super open to it. And yeah, check out Grid. Please give us feedback. In reality, if you're struggling with something, let us know. If you're unsure about the security of what you're working on and you're not even using Grid, I still want to hear about it. I want to know how we can both improve our product and help other people out. So just hit me up.
And will you be actually in Berlin during Build Station, or is it just
Yes,
like...
yes. I'm based out of Berlin, so I'll be
Okay.
around.
Perfect. Great. Then I will also see you there. I will be in the last week of this month, also at Build Station, so maybe we'll see each other. And I think people will be gladly reaching out to you regarding like your product or what they want to integrate there. So again, wanted to thank you very much for joining, because you're one of the biggest Superteam Germany players out there when it comes to development on Solana. So we are very grateful to have you. And yeah, with that said, enjoy your...
Thanks for having me. Have a great evening.
Always. It was lovely to have this dev kit with you. And maybe if you have some other products in the future, we might see each other again. And with that said, thank you guys for joining. See you in the next Developers Guild. And until then, keep hacking, keep working on your product, and message me or us regarding all developer related stuff. See you. Bye-bye.